it is great. What is it?
It's a twister! It's a twister!
Show me.
So we meet this guy Bill, who's stupidly taking his new girlfriend with him to get his wife to sign divorce papers. She's a storm chaser, and she and her team are setting up their equipment because they think a tornado's about to show up. But instead of catching her at home, Bill shows up at a remote location and rubs in her face that he's moved on and wants her to do something very personal and private in front of her friends and coworkers, who somehow find it more uncomfortable than they do.
This is very awkward.
I know, tell me about it.
He's insisting that he gets the papers now, which she's already signed, minus one page.
Can I read it first?
No.
But she won't sign because she wants to meet her, since not only did he bring her along, but told Joe that he was going to marry Melissa as soon as the papers are filed.
Who gets engaged before they're even divorced?
He's probably going through a midlife crisis. He's replacing his wife, his truck, and his job all at the same time.
It's like a whole new you.
See, he and Joe used to work together, but he gave up field work to become a weatherman.
48 degrees in the upper northwest and 38 degrees in the Middle East.
Well, it turns out that Joe told him to meet her there because she finished a project that they were working on together.
It's about Dorothy.
Dorothy? Well, what has Dorothy done? Oh, you mean the thing.
And she wants him to be there when they test it, which they're going to do right now, because they just happen to finish this first of its kind technology right before the biggest storm in 40 years develops.
You know, if these cells keep building like this, there could be a record outbreak of tornadoes.
But Joe didn't sign the papers, so Bill and Melissa join the convoy because Bill really wants to see this launch, but uses the excuse that he wants to marry her as a reason to go.
That's sweet.
So he plans to ditch his fiancée at the next stop to spend the day in mortal danger with his wife, but tries to pass it off as being for her. But she's not buying that crap, and is gonna stay with him.
I'm gonna tag along.
But I don't think she knows what she's getting herself into. See, these people don't see a tornado as a storm, they see it more like a sentient being.
You've never seen it miss this house and miss that house and come after you.
So you're telling me that Billy knows what a storm is thinking?
We destroy demons.
But on the way, some evil storm chasers show up. And then he wonders why other storm chasers are in the area expecting a lot of storms.
Yeah, what's Jonas doing here?
There are evil storm chasers?
Alright, they're not evil, but Bill thinks they are. Because this guy Jonas Miller that they used to work with got some people to invest money in his research. So they're not really bad, Bill's just jealous.
It's a corporate kiss, but man.
But they do drive black trucks to make him seem bad. So both groups meet at a diner, where Joe tries to be polite to Melissa, and she responds by accusing Joe of being in love with her own husband that Melissa is currently dating and has the nerve to call her desperate.
If you have to pee, you should do it now, because there's not very many places to stop once we get on the road.
You're still in love with him, aren't you?
And Bill finds out that Jonas stole their idea for Dorothy and is trying to beat them to the launch first. And then Bill tries to fight him because Jonas called him a weatherman.
I really enjoy your weather reports.
If you have a problem being a weatherman,
I don't have a problem being a weatherman.
But Bill is more than a weatherman. He's a tornado whisperer.
You start believing the twister is not just a weather condition. It takes on a life of its own, becoming an entity. A demon spirit.
So, we're gonna go get us a demon now?
After a while.
Once he figures out where the storm is going to break, they hit the road, and Bill ditches his fiancée, demands to drive Joe's Jeep, and then almost kills them both by not paying attention.
So even though he quit, he acts like he's in charge?
Pretty much. Then, when they catch up to the tornado, they need to get in front of it, so they drive into a ditch and crash into a bridge where they plan to let the tornado suck up Dorothy. But it's too close, and they need to find shelter or they're going to die. So they go under a wooden bridge where the suction is so great that it moves the truck. But they can also easily loosen their grip to watch it.
Are you insane?
But then it picks up the truck and the tractor on the bridge, but it only takes a few boards from the bridge, and they just get a little wet. And then the truck almost crushes Melissa, and she freaks the fuck out. But there's a whole series of storms coming, so they just pick up what they can from Joe's truck and go after the next tornado. And they think it's a good idea to take the chick that was just having a panic attack in the truck that has to go right in front of the tornado without telling her what's about to happen.
It's a suck zone.
Jonas and his team are about to get it, but Bill can tell where the tornado's gonna go, so he takes a different route. And Jonas and his men are like idiots.
Nothing changes. He's gonna wait and see what Bill does.
Do we follow? We do not.
They think they're so smart because they have a whole team reading all these instruments, even though they didn't know where to go without Bill for the last one.
I think they turn left here. Do it.
But when Bill, Joe, and Melissa catch up to it, it's actually 3 little tornadoes that just spin their truck around, politely keeping it on the road, and then they fuck off.
Those were demons.
But they do manage to ruin a cow's day first.
But my cow!
Bill and Joe forget about Melissa and celebrate being in their second tornado of the day while she deals with being in shock.
Wait, don't do this now, please.
The rest of the team catch up to them, and despite them just leaving a diner not too long ago, they're hungry and force Joe to take them to her aunt's house where she's expected to feed them all.
I gotta go, Julia. We got cows.
While they eat, they tell Melissa how crazy Bill used to be.
This loser stumbles out of the car. He's got like a bottle of Jack Daniels in his hand.
She did not marry your penis.
He's naked. He is butt naked.
All right, she didn't only marry your penis.
That's so much to ask.
They also explain how tornado rankings work,
It's the Fujita scale. It measures the intensity of a tornado by how much it eats.
which is wrong. It's based on wind speed, and the damage they're talking about is typical damage you would expect at that wind speed. Then after they talk about F1 through 4, Melissa asks the completely reasonable question, is there an F5? And they all look at her like she just pulled her tits out at a funeral.
Good, let's see him.
Joe is the only one of them that's ever seen an F5 tornado. Back in 1969, her parents came to take her to a storm cellar because there was a tornado coming at their house. And her dad didn't even try to grab her dog when Joe was screaming his name and he was right there on the bed.
Yeah, son of a bitch.
Maybe he was freaked out because the news said it was an F5. 2 years before the Fujita scale was even introduced.
That's no excuse.
You're an awful man.
But they make it to the cellar where they lock the dog out. But I guess he realized that she'll think he's an asshole if he doesn't let the dog in, so he opens the door.
God, he sucks.
And he certainly didn't pick out a strong enough lock for the door, and he gets sucked out into the storm and dies.
That's what you get, you stupid butthole.
Well, yeah, but it happened right in front of Joe, who was just fine not holding on to anything 10 feet away from him. But she bravely tried to go get him, and has been looking for a way to make an advanced warning system ever since. And she's very sensitive about this topic.
Aren't there already tornado warnings?
Well, the civil
They're not
defense-
good enough. They're nowhere near good enough.
Or maybe she just wants to kill the tornado that killed her father. I don't know.
Christ, Joe, is that what you think it did? Destroy him.
But they get an alert from another storm a few miles away, so they pack up and hightail it out of there. After a shortcut through a field, they almost take out Jonas's caravan, but Joe thinks it's okay because they didn't stop to make sure they were okay earlier. Bill and his team turn off and head back in the direction they just came from, but Jonas and his team keep going straight, even though Bill's team has been right every time so far.
He's got a lot of high-tech gadgets, but he's got no instincts.
Yeah, you wouldn't want the scientists to use science to get their data.
You're the doctor, tell me.
Apparently, this is going to be a big one, so the team pulls over, and Bill and Joe keep going to deploy Dorothy. They know they're close, so Bill, who's never operated this machine, climbs into the bed of the truck to get it ready in a hailstorm. They figure they're close enough when a boat flies past them, so they stop and pull it off. But an electrical pole knocks it down, and the sensors end up all over the road. And then the tornado just disappears. But they realize it's going to come back, so Joe tries to pick up all the sensors before they go. Bill forces her in the truck, but then she just jumps right back out and tries again. He talks the clearly crazed and obsessed woman down, and keeps her from doing something that would get her killed. But Melissa overhears him, and is upset he doesn't want his wife to die.
I just hope this isn't some desperate attempt to keep him in your life.
So when they pull over for the night, Joe signs the divorce papers, but doesn't have a chance to give them to Bill because he notices that the drive-in movie theater concession stand has shitty reception on their TV.
A communications disruption can mean only one thing: invasion.
It's coming! It's headed right for us! It's already here!
And I can only assume that no one was watching their instruments while they were in the vans because a tornado sneaks up on them.
Surprise, motherfucker!
They try to warn everybody to get to safety, but Joe almost doesn't make it because a member of her own team, someone who researches tornadoes professionally, doesn't know where to go when one shows up.
Stupid!
But after it's all over, Melissa breaks up with Bill because she almost died several times today. She thinks he'll get bored of her because she doesn't like trucks almost falling on her or exploding drive-in movie theater signs.
We're okay. We were perfectly safe. She was a demon.
Deep down, I always just thought it was a metaphor.
And then they find out that the storm is heading right for Aunt Meg's place in Wakita. But when they get there, the whole town is totaled. They go to Meg's house, where they find that she made it to the basement, but only because the floor caved in, and not thanks to her owning every single wind catcher in Oklahoma.
Jesus Christ, you're obsessed!
They're able to find her thanks to her dog, so they slide down a broken wall that keeps shifting under the weight of the two of them. So when they go get her out, the three of them walk up together, adding another 200 pounds to the already dangerous walk, and they leave the dog behind.
Those buttholes.
Exactly. Why not have the people on the roof call for the dog? But Bill does go back in after him after he's already climbed to safety.
You people are all crazy. You know that.
And as soon as they get her and her dog out, the house collapses. But Meg tells her that her research will save everyone, And that's when they find out that this storm is merged with another storm and an F5 is about to hit. So Joe's more motivated than ever, especially since there was a family posing on the side of the road that looked just like hers. Well, assuming her dad didn't think he was stronger than a tornado. And maybe that bump on the head might have Aunt Meg forgetting what she actually does for a living, but she tells Joe to go after it.
You go, stop it.
God, Meg, you got a lot of beef.
So after all of her friends and family almost died today, she wants to go after the storm that killed her dad?
Yeah, and it's even dumber knowing that if Jonas wasn't around, that they could do the same test with an F1 later on and still find out what they need to know. But she's all, the storm that killed my dad will be the storm that saves everybody. But first, Meg's weird art project gives her an idea on how to get the sensors to stay up in the tornado.
I know how to make Dorothy fly.
Tap your heels together 3 times and think to yourself, there's no place like home.
Of course.
So even though they need to leave now to catch up to the storm, they get a bunch of Pepsi cans, since someone doesn't love themselves as a person, cut them up, and duct tape the pieces to every single one of the sensors in this giant vat. And they need to do it for 2 of them. So they get to the storm, where all the sensors are in the van, and Dorothy is on the truck. So they have to pull over right next to a tornado and load them up, but somehow there doesn't seem to be any wind, debris, rain, hail like there was in the other storms, even though this one's supposed to be the biggest. But they did learn from their earlier mistake and have Dorothy ready to unload when they get close enough to the storm. But they didn't count on the debris, and a tree knocks it over.
Okay, I get why the other ones wouldn't stay in those tornado. But if these have those fin thingies, why won't they stay in?
Well, I'm pretty sure the tank needs to open while it's inside of the eye of the storm because the sensors are too light and would get thrown out. Kind of like the tree that gets wedged under their truck, but an oil tanker gently helps them get free before the tornado gets them. But the tanker gets sucked back up and then dropped in front of them, but they just drive around the giant explosion and are planning on trying again. But this is the last one, so this is for all the marbles. And of course, just to up the tension, Jonas is driving alongside the tornado too. But he thinks the advice that Bill and Joe are giving him is to make him lose the race.
Dude, he's gonna rue the day. He's gonna rue the day he came up against the extreme.
Rue the day?
Who talks like that?
Talking imminent ruinage. Imminent ruinage.
And because of that, he dies. And then his team videotapes him blowing up. But they don't have time to be sad. Or happy, I don't know how they feel about him.
What a wiener.
Because it's all up to them now. And they need to get ahead of it so they can release Dorothy. The tornado hits a farm equipment dealership and starts throwing all sorts of crap at them.
We don't fear these demons. We destroy them.
But a house rolls onto the road and they drive through the first floor living room window, up the stairs, through 2 upstairs bedrooms, a bathroom, and somehow still exit on the first floor. And now that they know that they need to anchor Dorothy, Bill's gonna sacrifice his new truck for science.
We got full coverage on that truck?
Liability only.
So Joe crawls in the back and activates the machine. They set the cruise control and drive it straight at the tornado and then jump out into a cornfield. Now their plan is to run away from the tornado that has the wind speed of 261 miles per hour at minimum and run for cover in a cornfield with stalks they can't see over. But they also want them to stay and watch it to make sure Dorothy gets sucked up, and that's when we see the sensors get released before it's inside. And they work.
But I thought that they had to be released inside the tornado.
I did too. I'm just as confused as you are. But so the nerds get the info and are super happy, but Joe and Bill still need to not die because the tornado whisperer didn't notice it was going to come right for them. So they run and magically find shelter, but it has a fence around the property and it would be rude to hop it when a tornado is chasing you, so they just go around.
Bill always went his own way, which was usually the same way you were going.
At least until they find an opening that would take more time to crawl under than it would to jump over. They make it to the barn before any shrapnel tries to impale them, but then they notice all the sharp pointy things in the barn and say, fuck that noise, and they run back outside right as the tornado completely destroys the barn. So good call on that one. And luckily they have this habit of turning around right as something is coming at them so they can dodge it. And that's when they find a shed. Now this is a piddly ass little tool shed, but it has some pipes in it. So they tie themselves to the pipes with some leather straps that were just conveniently hanging on the wall, and somehow that's enough to keep them from getting sucked in. And not only that, but they get to see what the inside of a tornado looks like, and also don't get hit by anything or ripped in half. But I'm not really sure how they're able to keep their eyes open in 200-mile-an-hour winds when I have problems in 30-mile-an-hour winds, or how people on motorcycles need goggles when they're going 60. But then, the highest level of tornado just stops, and everything is right with the world again.
We've been chosen by God. He will protect us.
They're about to kiss, but get cock-blocked by the team. But since they're always around and up their asses anyway, Joe's like, it's cool, you can watch. And now that they've defeated a tornado, we're allowed to see that all kids aren't 5-year-old little blonde girls. They even talk about working together again, but they may still have some kinks to work out with their professional relationship.
You're doing the analysis. I'm running the lab.
You're running the lab? I don't think so.
Saying you
Come
need
on.
therapy.
What?
I'm
what?
not.
Wait. I need therapy?
I didn't say that.
I need a therapist?
I didn't
What
say
could I
that.
possibly need a therapist for? There are demons among us. The devil has released them for the final battle. It's being fought right now. And destroying demons is a good thing.
I think they're getting better at this.
Did you know that we have over 100 of these bedtime stories on the channel now? You might want to hit that subscribe button.
Dude, you taking the vows?
This is gonna be a long day.
It's over, it's all over.